Sweetheart, have you seen my wallet? Michael's voice called out from the kitchen, muffled slightly as he rummaged through a drawer. Amanda, standing in front of the bedroom mirror, clipped on her earrings. She adjusted the neckline of her blouse, turning her head to inspect how her hair fell over her shoulders. She didn't rush to respond. Finally, she glanced over at her phone, buzzing quietly on the bed, then called back. It's on the counter, next to your coffee. Michael appeared in the doorway a moment later, wallet in hand, and his tie slightly askew. His dark hair was still damp from the shower. Found it. Thanks, he said, walking over to her. Big day ahead? Same as always, Amanda replied with a practiced smile. Yoga with the girls, errands, maybe hit the farmer's market if there's time. What about you? Michael chuckled as he set his wallet on the dresser and fixed his tie in the mirror next to her. Meetings all morning. Then lunch with a client. Shouldn't be too late tonight, though. He turned to kiss her on the cheek, his warm breath brushing her skin. Drive safe, Amanda said, placing her hand lightly on his chest. You too, Michael replied, his tone affectionate, before grabbing his coffee and heading out. As the front door clicked shut, Amanda sighed and checked the time on her phone. It was barely 8 a.m., and she already felt an ache of anticipation, a thrill that had nothing to do with Michael. Her phone buzzed. Brandon. Morning, beautiful. Last night was wild. Can't wait for round 2. Amanda's lips curved upward, her thumb hovering over the keyboard before she typed back. Soon, she slipped the phone into her purse and took a deep breath, steeling herself. There was a tinge of guilt, but she pushed it down. She told herself she deserved this spark of excitement, this secret escape from the mundane rhythm of her marriage. After Michael left, Amanda moved about the house with a calculated pace. She tidied up the living room, placing pillows back in order and wiping down the coffee table. From an outsider's perspective, it would seem like the actions of a dutiful wife maintaining a warm, inviting home. But Amanda wasn't thinking about Michael as she fluffed the cushions. Her mind drifted to Brandon, the smell of his cologne lingering in her memory, the feel of his rough hands as they pulled her close the night before. Her heart raced at the thought of their next rendezvous. She checked her watch again. 2 hours until her yoga class. Amanda's phone buzzed once more. Brandon. My place. Usual time? Or somewhere new? Her fingers flew over the screen. Your place. Less risky. Meanwhile, Michael sat in his car in the office parking lot, sipping his coffee and scrolling through his phone. His mind drifted back to Amanda, replaying their brief exchange that morning. She seemed distracted lately, nothing obvious, just little things, like how she laughed less at his jokes or how her answers felt rehearsed. Stop overthinking it, he muttered to himself, shaking his head. Amanda loves you. She's just busy. Still, something gnawed at the back of his mind, a quiet unease he couldn't place. He finished his coffee, tossed the cup into the passenger seat, and headed inside. Amanda parked her car a block away from Brandon's apartment, just as they had agreed. She glanced around before stepping out, making sure no one she recognized was nearby. She pulled her jacket tighter, though the morning was warm, and walked briskly to his door. Brandon opened it almost immediately. He was wearing a plain t-shirt and jeans, his signature grin spreading across his face. Morning, gorgeous, he said, leaning in to kiss her. Amanda hesitated for a split second before giving in, her lips brushing his. You're getting too comfortable, she said softly, stepping inside. We need to be careful. Brandon laughed. Relax. Nobody knows. You worry too much? I have a lot to lose, Amanda shot back, folding her arms. Brandon shrugged, walking toward the kitchen. You keep saying that, but you keep coming back. Coffee. She shook her head, watching him move about the small space. Brandon was so different from Michael, less polished, more impulsive. That recklessness both excited and terrified her. So, when's the next big anniversary thing with the hubby? Brandon asked, leaning against the counter with a smirk. Amanda rolled her eyes. Next week. 15 years. He's planning some big dinner party at home. Friends, family, the whole shebang. Brandon let out a low whistle. 15 years. That's cute. Think he'll make it to 16? Brandon, Amanda warned, though she couldn't hide the faint smile tugging at her lips. Hey, just saying, Brandon said, raising his hands in mock defense. "We're way more fun," Amanda sighed, walking over to him. "You don't get it. It's not that simple. Michael's a good man. He doesn't deserve this." Brandon's expression darkened slightly. "Then why are you here?" Amanda stared at him, caught off guard by the question. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Brandon's smirk returned. "That's what I thought." Later that afternoon, Amanda returned home, her heart pounding as she pulled into the driveway. She checked her reflection in the mirror, smoothing her hair and reapplying her lipstick. She couldn't afford any slip-ups. Inside, she busied herself with mundane tasks, folding laundry, answering emails. But her mind was elsewhere, replaying the morning's events with Brandon. When Michael came home that evening, he greeted her with his usual warmth, kissing her on the cheek. "How was yoga?" "Great," Amanda replied without missing a beat. "We tried a new instructor. Really intense session." Michael smiled, grabbing a beer from the fridge. "Good for you. You deserve some time to yourself." The words hit Amanda like a weight, but she kept her face neutral. She watched as Michael settled onto the couch, flipping through channels. He was so trusting, so unaware. As the evening wore on, Amanda found herself stealing glances at Michael. He laughed at a comedy show, oblivious to the storm brewing just beneath the surface. Amanda's phone buzzed again, tucked away in her pocket. She didn't need to check it to know who it was. "Everything okay?" Michael asked, noticing her distracted look. "Yeah," Amanda said quickly. "Just tired. I think I'll head to bed early." Michael nodded, his attention already back on the TV. "Good night, sweetheart." Amanda kissed him on the forehead, lingering for a moment longer than usual. Then she turned and walked down the hall, her phone buzzing again as she closed the bedroom door. Michael leaned back in his office chair, rubbing his temples as his eyes scanned the last of his emails for the day. The steady hum of his desktop computer filled the quiet study. He closed the tab and glanced at the clock. It was nearly 10 p.m. Amanda had already gone to bed, leaving her laptop open on the desk next to his. "Another long day," he muttered to himself. He reached for the bottle of water next to his keyboard, but paused when Amanda's laptop screen lit up. A text notification popped in the corner. "Last night was amazing. Can't wait to see you again. Gorgeous." Michael froze, the words registering slowly. His brow furrowed as he stared at the notification. He leaned closer to the screen, his heart pounding in his chest. The sender? Brandon. "No, that can't be right," he whispered under his breath. He shook his head and turned away, trying to process. It had to be a mistake, a misunderstanding. Maybe Brandon was texting someone else, and the message somehow came through Amanda's laptop. But the device was hers. It was synced to her phone. Michael stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the hardwood floor. He paced the room, his thoughts racing. Could there really be something going on between his wife and his best friend? The next morning, Michael watched Amanda from across the breakfast table. She hummed quietly as she buttered her toast, her movements calm and unhurried. "Sleep well?" he asked casually, his voice betraying none of the turmoil inside. She smiled at him, taking a sip of her coffee. "Like a baby." "You?" "Yeah," he lied, forcing a grin. "Just been thinking a lot about work stuff." Amanda nodded, her attention drifting to her phone as it buzzed on the counter. Michael noticed the way her posture shifted slightly, the way her lips pressed into a faint smile as she glanced at the screen. "Who's that?" he asked, keeping his tone light. "Oh, just a friend from yoga," she replied without looking up, her fingers moving quickly over the screen. Michael's stomach churned. "Yoga, huh?" "Yeah, we're planning a weekend retreat soon. Should be fun," Amanda said, setting her phone down and turning her attention back to her breakfast. Michael nodded slowly, his mind racing. Later that day, Michael found himself replaying every interaction he'd witnessed between Amanda and Brandon. There was the time Brandon had shown up uninvited for dinner, grinning as he handed Amanda a bottle of her favorite wine. "For the hostess with the most S," he'd said, winking at her. Then there were the inside jokes they shared, the stolen glances during game nights, and how Amanda had laughed a little too hard at Brandon's stories, even the ones Michael had heard a dozen times. He thought back to a party they'd attended months ago. Amanda had spent half the night talking with Brandon in the corner of the room, their heads bent close together. Michael had brushed it off at the time. Brandon was family, after all. But now, those moments took on a new, sinister meaning. That evening, Michael came home from work earlier than usual. Amanda was in the living room, folding laundry while a sitcom played in the background. "Hey," she said, looking up as he entered. "You're home early?" "Yeah, figured I'd call it a day," Michael said, setting his bag down by the door. He hesitated for a moment before adding, "Brandon called me earlier. Said he wanted to grab a beer this weekend." Amanda's hands paused briefly, barely noticeable, before she continued folding. "Oh, that's nice. You guys haven't hung out in a while." Michael watched her closely, noting the way she avoided his gaze. "Yeah, it's been a minute," he said. "Maybe I'll ask him what he's been up to lately. He seems busy." Amanda laughed nervously. "You know Brandon. Always on the go." Michael nodded, forcing a smile. "Yeah, I guess so." Over the next week, Michael began to observe Amanda and Brandon more carefully. He noticed the little things, how Amanda's phone was always on silent when he was around, how she'd step outside to take certain calls. One evening, during a dinner with friends, Michael caught Brandon glancing at Amanda when he thought no one was looking. It was subtle, but it was there, a flicker of something more than friendship. "Mike, you okay?" one of their friends asked, pulling him out of his thoughts. "Yeah," Michael said quickly, forcing a laugh. "Just zone out for a second." Michael decided he needed proof. The text from Brandon wasn't enough to confront Amanda outright. He needed to be sure. The next day, while Amanda was out, Michael accessed her laptop again. He opened her messages, scrolling through the conversations until he found Brandon's name. His hands trembled as he read the exchange. "Brandon, last night was amazing. I can still smell your perfume on my shirt. Amanda, you're such a tease. I can't wait for Friday. Same place? Brandon, wouldn't miss it for the world, gorgeous." Michael stared at the screen, his heart pounding. The words blurred as his vision clouded with anger. There was no misunderstanding now. He closed the laptop and leaned back in the chair, his mind a whirlwind of emotions. Betrayal, anger, disbelief. It all hit him at once. For years, he had trusted Brandon like a brother. And Amanda, she was the love of his life. How could they do this to him? That night, Michael barely slept. Amanda lay beside him, her breathing steady and peaceful. Michael stared at the ceiling, his thoughts racing. When Amanda shifted in her sleep and reached out to touch his arm, he flinched involuntarily. She didn't notice. As the first rays of sunlight crept into the room, Michael made a decision. He would confront them, but not yet. He needed a plan. For now, he would play the part of the loving husband, the oblivious best friend. But inside, a storm was brewing, and it was only a matter of time before it broke. Michael sat at the dining table, staring at the coffee mug in his hand. The steam swirled upward, but his thoughts were elsewhere, clouded with suspicion and anger. His military training had taught him to rely on instincts, and right now, those instincts screamed that something was terribly wrong. Amanda hummed softly in the kitchen, putting dishes away with the casual ease of someone who believed her secret was safe. Michael glanced at her, his jaw tightening. He had always prided himself on being a man who could read people, and yet for months he had missed the signs under his own roof. Amanda turned to him with a smile. "You're quiet this morning. Everything okay?" Michael forced a chuckle, lifting the mug to his lips. "Just tired. Busy week ahead. You should take it easy," she said, placing a hand on his shoulder as she walked past. Her touch, once comforting, now felt like a mockery. Later that day, Michael sat in his truck, parked a few blocks away from his house. His phone was in his lap, the screen displaying a search for discreet surveillance equipment. "If I'm wrong, I'll regret this," he muttered to himself. But if I'm right, he hesitated for a moment before tapping the order button. Over the next few days, Michael carefully installed a hidden camera in the guest room, a room Amanda rarely used but had once suggested for yoga stretches. It was the perfect location, far enough from their bedroom to seem innocuous. The first few days yielded nothing unusual. Amanda went about her routine, attending her yoga classes and running errands. Michael waited patiently, reviewing the footage every evening after Amanda went to bed. Then, on the fourth night, his patience paid off. Michael sat in the dim light of his study, the hidden camera feed open on his laptop. The timestamp read 8:47 p.m. Amanda had told him she was meeting a friend for coffee. Instead, she appeared on the screen, leading Brandon into the guest room. Michael's heart pounded as he watched. Amanda closed the door behind them, her laughter soft but unmistakable. Brandon pulled her close, his hands on her waist, and kissed her deeply. Michael clenched his fists, his jaw tightening as he forced himself to watch. The betrayal unfolded before his eyes, confirming what his gut had been telling him for weeks. He closed the laptop, his breaths coming in short, sharp bursts. The next morning, Michael woke before Amanda, leaving the bed quietly to avoid waking her. He sat in the kitchen, staring blankly at the wall. The coffee pot gurgled in the background, but he didn't move to pour a cup. Amanda appeared in the doorway, stretching and yawning. "You're up early," she said, her voice groggy. "Couldn't sleep," Michael replied flatly. Amanda frowned, walking over to the counter. "You've been so tense lately. Is everything okay at work?" "Work's fine," Michael said, his tone clipped. He glanced at her, studying her expression. She looked genuinely concerned, as if she hadn't spent the previous night in another man's arms. "You sure?" she asked, pouring herself a cup of coffee. "I'm sure," Michael said. He stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. "I need to head out early today. Don't wait up for me tonight." Amanda tilted her head, surprised. "Everything okay?" "Yeah," Michael said, forcing a smile. "Just some late meetings." That evening, Michael didn't go to work. Instead, he parked his truck down the street from his house, waiting. He watched as Amanda left in her car, her phone pressed to her ear. Michael followed at a safe distance, his military training keeping him calm and focused. Amanda drove across town, eventually pulling into a small parking lot near a row of apartments. Michael watched as she got out of the car and walked toward one of the buildings. Brandon was waiting for her at the entrance, his arms crossed casually. Amanda greeted him with a kiss before they disappeared inside. Michael gripped the steering wheel tightly, his knuckles turning white. He wanted to confront them right then and there, but he held back. He needed to think to plan his next move carefully. When Amanda returned home later that night, Michael was sitting in the living room, pretending to watch a late-night talk show. "You're up late," Amanda said, setting her purse down. "Couldn't sleep," Michael said, not looking at her. Amanda hesitated, then walked over and sat next to him. "You've been distant lately. Is something wrong?" Michael turned to her, his expression unreadable. "No, just a lot on my mind." Amanda placed a hand on his arm, her eyes searching his face. "You can talk to me, you know." Michael forced a small smile. "I know." The next day, Michael reviewed the hidden camera footage again. This time, he watched it all, every whispered word, every lingering touch. It was painful, but it solidified his resolve. He began to piece together a timeline of Amanda's betrayals, cross-referencing her supposed yoga sessions with Brandon's claimed business dinners. The patterns were undeniable. Michael also noticed something else: Brandon's arrogance. The man acted as if he were untouchable, his smirks and jokes filled with an air of superiority. Michael's anger simmered, but he kept it contained. He wouldn't let his emotions dictate his actions. Over the next few weeks, Michael continued his investigation, gathering more evidence. He tracked Amanda's movements, took screenshots of incriminating messages, and even recorded phone conversations between her and Brandon. By the time he was finished, he had everything he needed. The proof was irrefutable, but Michael wasn't ready to confront them just yet. He wanted them to feel the weight of their betrayal, to realize the full extent of the damage they had caused. For now, he would play the role of the oblivious husband and best friend, hiding his anger behind a carefully crafted mask. The mask might have cracked, but it hadn't shattered. Not yet. Michael smiled to himself as he closed his laptop, the plan already forming in his mind. The storm was coming, and Amanda and Brandon had no idea what was about to hit them. The night began with a dazzling display of normalcy. Michael had spared no expense to make the anniversary dinner a grand event. The house was impeccably decorated, with soft, warm lights casting a golden glow over the dining room. A string quartet played softly in the background, and the air was filled with the aroma of roasted lamb, garlic, and freshly baked bread. Amanda moved through the crowd, smiling brightly and accepting compliments from their friends and family. She looked radiant in a sleek, crimson dress, her laughter echoing like a melody. To everyone in attendance, they seemed like the perfect couple celebrating another year of marital bliss. Michael stood by the fireplace, a glass of bourbon in hand, observing the room. He exchanged pleasantries and offered polite smiles, but his focus never wavered from Amanda. Beneath his calm exterior, he was a volcano, ready to erupt. As the night wore on, Michael glanced at his watch. Brandon hadn't arrived yet. He took a deep breath, the weight of his plans settling over him. Everything had to go perfectly. A moment later, the front door swung open. Brandon entered with his signature swagger, dressed in a sharp suit that reeked of overconfidence. He carried a bottle of champagne and a grin that bordered on arrogance. "Sorry I'm late," Brandon announced, his voice cutting through the hum of conversation. "But hey, better late than never, right?" The guests laughed politely, some raising their glasses in acknowledgement. Michael caught Amanda's gaze. She looked flustered, her smile faltering for a split second before she regained her composure. "Brandon," Amanda said, walking toward him, "I'm glad you could make it." Michael watched the interaction closely. Her tone was warm, but there was a nervous edge to it. "Wouldn't miss it for the world," Brandon replied, his grin widening as he handed her the champagne. Dinner was served, and the guests gathered around the long, elegantly set table. Michael sat at the head, Amanda to his right. Brandon, of course, had managed to position himself directly across from her. The meal proceeded smoothly, with lively conversation and laughter filling the room. Michael played his role flawlessly, engaging in discussions and sharing stories from their past adventures. But then Brandon began to push the boundaries. "So, Amanda," Brandon said, leaning forward slightly, "remember that night in the city? You know, when we couldn't stop laughing about that waiter who spilled the wine." Amanda froze for a fraction of a second, her fork halfway to her mouth. "Oh, yes, that was hilarious," she said, forcing a laugh. Michael tilted his head, pretending to be curious. "When was this?" "Oh, just a random night out with friends," Amanda replied quickly, avoiding his gaze. "Must have been a great time," Michael said, his voice steady. Brandon smirked but said nothing more, clearly enjoying the tension. As dessert was being served, Michael stood and tapped his glass with a spoon. The room quieted, all eyes turning to him. "I just wanted to take a moment," Michael began, his tone warm and genuine, "to thank everyone for being here tonight. Amanda and I have shared so many wonderful years together, and it means the world to have all of you here to celebrate with us." The guests clapped, raising their glasses in a toast. Amanda beamed, her smile radiant. And Michael continued, his gaze locking onto Brandon. "I'd like to give a special thanks to my best friend, Brandon, for always being there for us. Truly, you're like family." Brandon raised his glass, grinning smugly. "Always, brother. You know that." Michael's jaw tightened, but he smiled. "I do. Which is why I think now is the perfect time for some honesty." The room grew quiet, the cheerful atmosphere turning heavy with anticipation. Michael set his glass down and turned to Amanda. "Sweetheart, do you remember that promise we made to each other on our wedding day? To always be truthful, no matter what." Amanda's smile wavered, her eyes darting nervously. "Of course," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Good," Michael said, his voice taking on a sharper edge. He turned to Brandon. "And you, Brandon, you've always been a straight shooter, haven't you? Never one to mince words." Brandon shifted uncomfortably, the grin fading from his face. Yeah, I guess you could say that." Michael nodded slowly. "Great, because I think now's the time for the truth to come out." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small remote. With a press of a button, the hidden camera footage from the guest room began playing on the large TV mounted on the wall. Gasps filled the room as the video showed Amanda and Brandon locked in an embrace, their betrayal laid bare for everyone to see. Amanda shot to her feet, her face pale. "Michael, I can explain." "Explain?" Michael interrupted, his voice cold and cutting. "Explain what, Amanda?" That you've been sneaking around with my best friend? That you've been lying to my face while pretending to be the perfect wife?" Brandon stood as well, his hands raised defensively. "Hey man, let's talk about this. Talk." Michael barked, rounding the table toward him. "You've got some nerve, Brandon. Coming into my home, eating my food, drinking my wine, and then pulling this." The guest sat frozen, unsure of what to do. Brandon smirked, trying to salvage his bravado. "You think you're so clever, huh? Well, since we're airing everything out," he turned to Amanda. "Honey, stop pretending. Everyone knows we've been spending wild nights for months." He pointed toward the toddler playing in the corner. "And your kid? Yeah, he's mine. Dine doesn't lie." The room erupted into chaos. Amanda's face crumpled as tears streamed down her cheeks. "You're lying," she cried. "That's not true." Brandon laughed. "Oh, come on, Amanda. Don't act like we didn't talk about this." Michael stepped forward, his movements calm and deliberate. "Brandon," he said, his voice low, "you've made a lot of mistakes tonight. But this—" Before Brandon could react, Michael grabbed his arm and twisted it in one fluid motion. A sickening pop echoed through the room as Brandon screamed in pain, dropping to his knees. Michael leaned down, his face inches from Brandon's. "That's the sound of consequences," he hissed. "You picked the wrong guy to screw over." The room fell silent. Amanda sobbed, begging Michael for forgiveness. "Please, Michael. I'm sorry. I was stupid and selfish, but I love you." Michael straightened, his gaze icy. "Love? Don't insult me." He turned to the guests, gesturing toward the door. "Party's over. Everyone out." As the room emptied, Michael looked at Amanda one last time. "You'll be hearing from my lawyer. Pack your things and get out. You're done here." With that, he walked out of the house, leaving behind 2 shattered lives and a room filled with the wreckage of betrayal. The room was still, the weight of Michael's rage hanging like a storm cloud. Brandon writhed on the floor, clutching his dislocated shoulder, his face twisted in pain. Guests hovered near the edges of the room, some frozen, others whispering in hushed tones. Michael stood tall, his demeanor calm, but his eyes burning with restrained fury. "Michael, what the hell is wrong with you?" Amanda shrieked, her voice cracking as she rushed to Brandon's side. Her crimson dress, once a symbol of elegance, now seemed out of place amidst the chaos. Michael tilted his head, his voice unnervingly even. "What's wrong with me?" "Oh, I'm sorry, Amanda. Is this not what you wanted? A little honesty? A little truth to spice up the evening?" Brandon groaned, his good hand attempting to steady himself. "You're insane," he spat, his voice strained. "You think you can get away with assault? I'll ruin you for this." Michael crouched down beside him, his expression cold. "Get away with it? Oh, Brandon." He leaned in, his voice a low growl. "You don't even know who you're dealing with." Amanda's anger flared, her face red as she stood to confront Michael. "You've lost your mind. You think you could just attack people and walk away? We'll take you to court. I'll take everything. This house, the business, everything." Michael laughed, a sharp, cutting sound that made Amanda flinch. "Court? Really? Amanda, darling, you should have done your homework before you started playing games with me." He walked to the bar, pouring himself a drink with infuriating composure. "See, you might have forgotten about that little prenup you signed all those years ago. But I haven't. Ironclad, sweetheart. And let me make one thing perfectly clear." He turned, fixing her with a steely gaze. "My son stays with me." Amanda's eyes darted to the toddler in the corner, who had been scooped up by a concerned family member. "He's not your son," she shouted, her voice breaking. "He's Brandon's. Dine doesn't lie." Michael raised his glass, the faintest smirk curling at his lips. "DNA? Funny you bring that up." Reaching into his pocket, Michael pulled out a folded envelope. "You know, Amanda, while you were busy sneaking around with this sorry excuse for a man, I was busy too. I had some tests run." He opened the envelope and pulled out a sheet of paper, holding it up for all to see. "This here? It's a paternity test. And guess what? He's my son." The room erupted in shocked murmurs. Amanda's face went pale, her defiance crumbling. That's not possible." Michael stepped closer, his voice icy. "Oh, it's possible. What's impossible is that you thought you could lie to me cheat on me, and then try to take my child away. Brandon, still on the floor, let out a bitter laugh. This isn't over, man. You can't just... Michael cut him off, his voice a sharp whip. Shut up. You're lucky I didn't break more than your shoulder. Michael turned back to Amanda, his anger now a controlled fire. You had everything, Amanda. A husband who loved you, a home, a family. And you threw it all away for what? And he gestured toward Brandon with disgust. Amanda's tears spilled over, her voice trembling. I made a mistake, Michael. I wasn't thinking. Damn right you weren't thinking, Michael snapped. You didn't think about our son. You didn't think about me. You didn't think about the life we built together. You only thought about yourself. Her knees buckled, and she sank to the floor, sobbing. Please, Michael. I'm sorry. I'll do anything to make this right. Michael's expression hardened. There's no making this right, Amanda. You made your choices. Now you'll live with the consequences. Michael turned to the stunned guests, many of whom were unsure whether to stay or leave. I think we've all had enough entertainment for one night, he said, his voice firm but controlled. Party's over. Slowly, the guests began to file out, murmuring their condolences and avoiding eye contact with Amanda and Brandon. As the door closed behind the last guest, Amanda reached for Michael, her hands trembling. Michael, please. I don't want to lose you. I don't want to lose our family. Michael stared at her for a long moment, his eyes cold. You already lost me, Amanda. The moment you decided to betray me, you lost everything. He grabbed his coat and walked toward the door, pausing only to glance back at her. Get your things. I want you out of the house by tomorrow. Amanda sobbed uncontrollably, but Michael didn't waver. He opened the door, stepping into the cool night air. As he walked to his truck, he felt a strange sense of calm wash over him. The storm had passed, and though his life had been upended, he knew one thing for certain. He was done being the victim. He drove away, leaving behind the shattered remnants of a life that had once seemed perfect. But for Michael, this was just the beginning of a new chapter, one where he held all the cards. The morning after the anniversary dinner, Michael awoke in a small, rented apartment. It wasn't much, just a mattress on the floor and a folding chair in the corner. But it was enough. He stretched and glanced at his phone, already buzzing with messages. The fallout from the previous night was in full swing. A message from an old army buddy read, Damn, Mike, heard about the dinner. You really dropped a bomb on them? Michael smirked, tossing the phone aside. Dropping bombs was something he'd always been good at. Across town, Amanda sat in the home that no longer felt like hers. The house, once warm and inviting, now felt cold and hollow. She stared at her phone, scrolling through missed calls and unread messages. News of the scandal had spread quickly, thanks to the guests who couldn't resist gossiping. Her mother's voicemail was the harshest. What were you thinking, Amanda? Betraying Michael? You've ruined everything. Amanda's hands trembled as she hit redial. Mom, she began, her voice shaky. Don't mom me, her mother snapped. You've humiliated this family. Do you have any idea what people are saying? I made a mistake, Amanda whispered. You made your bed, Amanda. Now lie in it. The line went dead. Amanda dropped the phone and buried her face in her hands. Meanwhile, Brandon sat in his cramped apartment, his arm in a sling. He was on the phone with his boss, trying to salvage his job. Look, it's all blown out of proportion, Brandon argued. It's a personal matter, nothing to do with work. His boss sighed. Brandon, your behavior reflects on the company. We can't have this kind of attention. I'm sorry, but you're done here. The call ended, leaving Brandon staring at the wall in disbelief. He muttered to himself, this is all Michael's fault. By midweek, Amanda finally gathered the courage to visit Michael. She stood outside his apartment door, her makeup barely masking the dark circles under her eyes. She knocked softly, her heart pounding. Michael opened the door, his expression unreadable. What do you want, Amanda? Michael, please, she began, her voice breaking. I need to talk to you. He stepped aside, letting her in. The apartment's simplicity was a stark contrast to their former home. I messed up, Amanda admitted, tears streaming down her face. I don't know what I was thinking. I love you, Michael. I always have. Michael leaned against the counter, arms crossed. Love? That's rich, Amanda. You call sneaking around with my best friend love? It wasn't like that, she pleaded. It was a mistake, a terrible mistake. But we can fix this. We can go to therapy, work on us. Michael's laugh was bitter. Therapy? Amanda, this isn't something you fix with a few sessions and some apologies. You didn't just hurt me. You destroyed the foundation of everything we had. Please, she sobbed. I'll do anything. Michael shook his head, his voice firm. There's nothing left to save. You made your choices. Now you live with them. Amanda's life unraveled quickly. Friends she'd once confided in turned their backs on her. Invitations to social gatherings disappeared. She became the subject of whispers and judgment everywhere she went. One afternoon, she sat in a coffee shop, hoping for a quiet moment. Instead, she overheard two women at the next table. Did you hear about Amanda? One whispered. Oh, everyone knows, the other replied. Cheating on Michael with his best friend? Disgusting. Amanda's face burned as she abandoned her untouched coffee and fled the shop. Brandon fared no better. His reputation as a suave, successful businessman was in shambles. Without his job, he struggled to pay his bills. His charm, once his greatest asset, now felt like a cheap trick. He tried reaching out to Amanda. Hey, he said over the phone. How are you holding up? Don't. Amanda snapped. This is your fault, Brandon. My fault, he retorted. You were right there with me, Amanda. Don't act innocent now. I lost everything because of you, she yelled before hanging up. Brandon stared at his phone, seething. Michael, on the other hand, began to rebuild. He spent his mornings jogging through the park with his son, who laughed as he tried to keep up. One day, a woman with a warm smile approached him. Hi, she said, holding out her hand. I'm Rachel. I've seen you around here with your little guy. Michael shook her hand, surprised by her straightforwardness. Michael, nice to meet you. Rachel nodded toward the boy. You've got a great kid. It's clear he adores you. Michael smiled. Thanks. He's my world. As Rachel walked away, Michael felt something he hadn't in a long time, hope. Back at the house, Amanda sat alone in the living room. Boxes surrounded her, filled with the remnants of her life with Michael. A court order had given her 30 days to vacate. She picked up a framed photo of their wedding day, her fingers tracing Michael's face. What have I done? She whispered. A knock at the door startled her. She opened it to find a process server. Mrs. Daniels? Yes, she replied cautiously. The man handed her an envelope. You've been served? Amanda opened the papers, her heart sinking. Divorce filings. Brandon tried to rally, reaching out to old contacts for work, but his reputation preceded him. Every meeting ended with polite refusals. At a bar one night, he vented to a stranger. It's all Michael's fault. He ruined me. The stranger chuckled. Sounds like you ruined yourself, buddy. Maybe next time, don't mess with a man's wife and kid. Brandon's drink soured in his mouth. As the weeks passed, Michael finalized the divorce and won full custody of his son. Amanda was left with nothing but regret and the faint hope that time might heal what she'd broken. Brandon, too, was a shadow of his former self, his confidence replaced with bitterness. Michael, however, found solace in the simple joys of life. Each day felt lighter, freer. He'd weathered the storm, and now, for the first time in years, he was truly at peace. The chill of early spring filled the air as Michael jogged through the park. The rhythmic thud of his feet on the trail mirrored the steady clarity he now felt in his life. His son, Ethan, skipped ahead, laughing as he chased a red kite that bobbed in the breeze. Careful, buddy, Michael called, slowing his pace. I got it, Dad, Ethan shouted, his small hands gripping the string tightly. Michael smiled, watching his son's joy. It had been months since the chaos of Amanda's betrayal, and every day felt like a step further from the wreckage. At the playground, Michael sat on a bench, sipping coffee while Ethan played on the swings. A soft voice interrupted his thoughts. Mind if I sit here? Michael looked up to see a woman with warm brown eyes and a confident yet kind demeanor. She held a coffee cup and a book. Not at all, Michael replied, gesturing to the empty spot beside him. She sat down, glancing toward the playground. That your little guy? Michael nodded. Ethan. He's my world. She smiled. He looks happy. I'm Avery, by the way. Michael, he replied, offering a handshake. Their conversation started light, shared observations about the weather and the park. But soon it deepened. Avery mentioned she'd recently moved to the area after ending a long, toxic relationship. I thought I'd never trust anyone again, Avery admitted, her gaze distant. But coming here, starting fresh, it's been healing. Michael nodded. I get that. I've been through my own storm recently. It's not easy, but you rebuild. Avery's eyes softened. You seem like you're doing a pretty good job of it. As the weeks went by, Michael and Avery ran into each other more often at the park. What started as friendly chats grew into longer conversations and shared laughter. Avery met Ethan, quickly forming a bond with him over silly jokes and kite-flying adventures. One afternoon, as they walked together, Michael opened up. Avery, I'll be honest. After what happened with Amanda, I wasn't sure I could trust anyone again. But you've reminded me that good people still exist. Avery touched his arm lightly. And you've reminded me that second chances are real, Michael. Meanwhile, across town, Amanda and Brandon's life together was unraveling. The initial excitement of their illicit affair had long faded, replaced by guilt, bitterness, and constant arguments. You never take responsibility for anything, Amanda shouted, slamming a stack of bills onto the table. Brandon leaned back in his chair, his arms still stiff from the injury Michael had inflicted. And you're perfect, right? Let's not forget who seduced who, Amanda. I lost my family because of you, and I lost my job. Their voices clashed, loud enough to rattle the cheap blinds on the windows of their modest apartment. Amanda's world had shrunk. Her once bustling social life had dried up. Friends had distanced themselves, and family remained cold. Every job application she sent seemed to vanish into a void, and every time she passed a mirror, she struggled to recognize the woman staring back. One day, while cleaning out a drawer, Amanda found an old photo of her and Michael on their honeymoon. They looked so happy, so full of promise. She traced his face with her finger, tears welling in her eyes. What have I done? She whispered. Brandon, too, was unraveling. Nights at the bar had become routine, his bitterness poisoning every conversation. One evening, after too many drinks, he cornered an old acquaintance, ranting about Michael. He ruined my life. Brandon slurred, his drink sloshing onto the counter. The acquaintance raised an eyebrow. Didn't you sleep with his wife? That's not the point. Brandon snapped, but the words stung. While Amanda and Brandon descended into their personal hells, Michael and Avery's bond grew stronger. One evening, after dinner at Avery's apartment, Michael helped her clean up. Thank you for tonight, Avery said, handing him a dish towel. Ethan's so sweet, and it's been a while since I've had a real family dinner. Michael dried the plate and set it on the counter. Thank you for being part of it. Their eyes met, and for the first time in years, Michael felt a spark he thought had been extinguished. Later that night, as Michael tucked Ethan into bed, the boy looked up at him. Dad, do you like Avery? Ethan asked innocently. Michael smiled. I do, buddy. She's a good person. Ethan grinned. I like her too. Michael kissed his son's forehead. Get some sleep. Big day tomorrow. The turning point came when Amanda showed up unannounced at Michael's apartment. Her face was pale, her eyes red from crying. Michael, she began, her voice trembling. I need to talk. Michael stepped outside, closing the door behind him. What do you want, Amanda? I want to say I'm sorry, she stammered. For everything. I've lost everything, Michael. And I know it's my fault. Michael crossed his arms, his expression unreadable. You're right. It is your fault. Her tears spilled over. I was stupid, selfish. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I needed you to know. Michael's voice softened, but only slightly. Amanda, I've moved on. You should too. As he turned to go back inside, Amanda called out, Michael, do you hate me? He paused. No. Hating you would mean I'm still holding on to something. I'll let go. You should do the same. That evening, Michael sat on the couch, reflecting. He didn't feel satisfaction from Amanda's suffering, only a quiet sense of closure. Avery joined him, handing him a cup of tea. You okay? She asked. Michael nodded. Yeah, For the first time in a long time, I think I am. As the months turned into a year, Michael and Avery's relationship blossomed. They built a life together, one rooted in trust and mutual respect. Avery's love for Ethan only deepened their bond, and soon, the three of them felt like a true family. Amanda, meanwhile, found herself alone, struggling to piece together a life from the ashes of her choices. Brandon disappeared from her life entirely, leaving her with nothing but regret. But Michael had no interest in looking back. His eyes were set firmly on the future, one he was determined to build with the people who truly mattered. The soft murmur of conversations filled the air as Michael stood at the altar, dressed in a well-tailored suit. His heart raced, but it wasn't from nerves, it was from excitement. He looked at Avery, standing beside him, her eyes glowing with happiness. The room was filled with their closest friends and family, the people who had been part of their journey. It felt like everything was finally falling into place. "Do you, Michael Daniels, take Avery Blake to be your lawfully wedded wife?" the officiant asked, a smile on his face. Michael's lips parted to speak, but he paused, looking down at Avery. Their eyes locked, and in that moment, everything else in the room faded. There was no past, no betrayal, no lost time, just the two of them, ready to begin a new chapter. "I do," Michael said, his voice steady. The officiant smiled and turned to Avery. "And do you, Avery Blake, take Michael Daniels to be your lawfully wedded husband?" Avery's eyes glistened with tears. She nodded, her voice thick with emotion. "I do." The room erupted into applause, and Michael felt his heart swell. He took Avery's hands, feeling the warmth of her touch, knowing that this was where he was meant to be. His life had come full circle, from the heartbreak of betrayal to the joy of true love. Among the guests, Amanda stood near the back of the room, her eyes fixed on Michael. Her once beautiful face was gaunt, her skin pale, and her eyes hollow, as if the years of regret had slowly drained her. She didn't belong here, not anymore. She had heard about Michael's wedding from a mutual acquaintance, and despite everything that had happened, part of her felt an inexplicable pull to witness this moment. It was a final glimpse at the life she had once had, the life she had destroyed. Her hand trembled as she clutched the small envelope in her pocket. An apology, the words scrawled out hastily, as though they could undo the damage she had caused. But deep down, she knew it was too late. The past could never be fixed. As the ceremony continued, Michael caught a glimpse of Amanda from the corner of his eye. His heart didn't race. It didn't skip a beat. It simply acknowledged her presence before moving on. He knew she was there, but it no longer mattered. His past was behind him, and the life he'd built with Avery was what he valued now. Amanda's eyes met his, and for a split second, there was a flicker of something, regret, guilt, or perhaps a fleeting hope that she could be part of this world again. But Michael didn't return the look. He turned his attention back to Avery, who was watching him, her smile radiating with love and joy. Michael mouthed, "I love you," and Avery's eyes softened, her face lighting up with a smile that reached her eyes. After the ceremony, guests mingled congratulating the newlyweds. Laughter filled the air, and the atmosphere was light. Avery and Michael shared their first dance as husband and wife. As they moved together, swaying to the soft melody, Avery rested her head on his shoulder. "I can't believe we're here," she whispered, her voice full of awe. Michael kissed the top of her head. "I couldn't have imagined it without you." "Sometimes the best things come from the worst times," Avery said, her voice steady. "You never gave up, Michael. And neither did I." He held her tighter. "It's you and me now. Nothing can tear this apart." Across the room, Amanda watched the couple, her expression unreadable. She had been an integral part of Michael's life, his partner, the mother of his child. But all of that felt distant now. Her gaze flickered to Ethan, now a young boy, laughing with his friends by the food table. He had grown so much, and despite the distance she had kept from him, she could still see pieces of Michael in him. It was a bitter reminder of the family she had destroyed. A few guests walked past her, their laughter a sharp contrast to the emptiness she felt. She could feel the stares, some curious, others judgmental. She had no place in this world anymore, not in Michael's life, not in Ethan's. She took a slow, deliberate breath, and stepped out of the crowd, heading toward the exit. Before she left, she glanced once more at Michael and Avery, then turned away, the weight of her choices settling on her shoulders. As the evening wore on, Michael and Avery mingled with their guests, but every so often, Michael's gaze would drift to the empty corner where Amanda had stood. He didn't feel anger. He didn't feel anything, just an odd sense of relief. He had moved on. He had found peace. As the night came to a close, Avery and Michael made their way to the exit, hand in hand. Their driver was waiting to take them to their honeymoon destination. But before they reached the door, Michael turned to Avery. "I have something for you," he said, his voice low. "You've already given me your love," Avery replied, smiling. "That's enough." Michael grinned. "Still, it's a little something I've been holding on to for a while." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. He opened it, revealing a delicate necklace with a single diamond pendant. "I never got the chance to give this to you before," Michael said, his eyes softening. "But I wanted you to have it now. You made my life complete, Avery." Tears filled Avery's eyes as she held the necklace in her hand. "Michael, this is too much." He gently placed it around her neck, his fingers brushing against her skin. "You deserve it. You've helped me rise from the ashes. I'll never forget that." They kissed, the world around them disappearing, leaving only the two of them together. As the night drew to a close and they left for their honeymoon, Amanda sat alone in her car, parked a few streets away from the wedding venue. She had watched it all unfold, the smiles, the laughter, the love, and she had been a mere spectator. The envelope in her lap remained unopened. She had written the words she thought might redeem her, but deep down, she knew that nothing could fix the damage she had caused. She had betrayed Michael, betrayed herself, and now she was alone. A soft breeze swept through the car as Amanda rolled down the window. She closed her eyes, taking a deep breath, and in that moment, she realized that the life she had once known was gone. There was no going back. Michael and Avery's love story was a testament to the power of second chances and the strength of the human heart. The past no longer haunted them. It had become a chapter closed, a lesson learned, and a reminder of how far they had come. They had risen from the ashes, stronger, together, and ready for whatever the future would bring. For Michael, the final twist had been the journey to forgiveness, not just of Amanda, but of himself. He had let go of the pain, the resentment, and embraced the life he had always deserved. And with Avery by his side, the world felt whole again.